Good morning, everyone. Welcome to binary.com. This live room here, weekly live room on the 14th of July. This is on Monday, always, of course, at 8 a.m. UK time. We'll be taking a look at the Forex markets and the price patterns, chart patterns, you name it, candlesticks, moving averages, all these technical tools as well to take a look what I think it might be happening or might be interesting for this week's trading. My name is Chris, by the way, once again, binary.com. But before we actually take a look at the charts, we have to make you aware of the fact that trading for exchange and global financial markets and products is considered high risk. It may not be suitable for all investors. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. By continuing watching this webinar, you agree with this disclaimer mentioned here and on Binary website. And we do thank you for your attention. Once again, if you want to take a look at the recording for the second time or for the first time after the Monday live session, you can register with your name and email address at blog.binary.com/weekly trading room. And with your name and email address, you'll be able to get an email about a few hours after the live session with the recording or the link to the recording. Today's goal is taking a look at the economic calendar, euro dollar, pound dollar, dollar yen, AUD, and XAU USD. So what do we got going this week? Today we have a French bank holiday. We also have ECB President Draghi speaking. We also have Aussie monetary policy meetings. That's actually tomorrow in Australian time, and monetary policy meeting statement of the Bank of Japan, plus a press conference tomorrow. Pound news, CPI, core retail sales, USD. On Tuesday, Wednesday, some scattered high impact. Be careful of the Bank of Canada rate statement, but also the unemployment rate of the pound are biggies. And otherwise, just normal red tagged and orange and medium and lower tagged events. Alrighty, let's start with the euro dollar daily chart. And the euro dollar is just in a period of very low volatility, small movements. We can see that the price is basically stuck between the 135 and 137 level for a couple of weeks already. So small daily candles, not much movement here on the euro dollar. Now, last week we did have some negative, some not so positive news for the eurozone. So this is of course going to be interesting if that indeed plays out and has an effect on the euro dollar to the downside. Now we obviously see here that there was the uptrend in play on the euro dollar, but price broke out of that and made a good momentum fall right there. So is this sideways zone a consolidation for more downside? That's possible. If so, 135 support will have to break for that downside to the 133.70 target, minus 272 target, and a potential bottom at 133. If that is not true, then we might see a break above 137. We stopped at the 38.2 fib already. The next target could be 137.50, which is the 50 fib, and then the minus 618 at 138, and then maybe the 78.6 at 139. Those become then targets to the upside there. All right, if price breaks above 137. So you can see there's not a lot of space, but on a lower time frame, there could be enough space to grab some pips to the upside, in my opinion at least. This is the weekly chart, and you can see that what I was talking about, the uptrend here, strong, moves up. Of course, recently it started to weaken a bit, and we had divergence between these tops, and we had a pretty strong fall. So we have to see, as price gets higher, we could still see, for instance, resistance kick in at these fibs, as I said, because we're going back to this resistance spot. 4-hour chart, zooming into that consolidation on the basically on the daily chart here, and you can see that it's really going pretty flat. This trend line might connect a few bottoms, so a break of that trend line, we could see maybe that fall to retest 135. A break of this top resistance line, we could see a rise maybe to challenge 137. Other than that, I really don't have much to add on this euro dollar. There's really not much to say about it because it's going so consolidation and so flat that all it boils down to is just keeping an eye on these trend lines and horizontal lines and taking a look when finally the break could happen. Otherwise, price could bounce between these two levels, the magenta and blue, for longer than we think, and we can stay maybe within that consolidation zone for another week. That could happen. We might next week meet again here and say, oh, it's still stuck in those levels. Let's take a look at the weekly chart. You can see that last week was basically a small bullish candle with the wick on top. Looks more like a doji. Nothing significant here on the weekly chart either. So we just have to hang in and see if some movement can happen on the euro dollar. Now, the pound dollar is looking differently. Why is that? Because there are a lot of things to say in favor of a trend. First of all, we have a lot of higher highs and higher lows ever since summer 2013. This uptrend basically lasting now for a year. Now, not the entire trend, but a good portion of that uptrend can be captured by this uptrend channel indicated by blue. And we just had a lot of good upsides within that uptrend. Of course, we had some sturdy retracements and corrections maybe as well. But look at this here, up, 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 right? A lot of good potential here. Most recently, we had a break of this orange line, the trend line indicating resistance, and we had good follow through. Now the question is this momentum on the daily chart, this is one momentum, is that finished or not? That is the question. Is this uptrend temporarily going to be pausing, or will we see the uptrend still resume? And that's something, of course, that's the main question, because it is an uptrend. There's no doubt about that. All right, that's not the question, in my opinion. So, well, if I look at the most recent high, that's this candle. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the 6th candle that hasn't broken that high. So today is quite an interesting day, because if it doesn't end up bullish, then I would say that the chances of this uptrend continuing, are decreasing pretty substantially. Now, if it does close bullish, but doesn't break that top, then there's a decent chance that tomorrow could break this top. If, of course, today breaks that top, then obviously we're back in that uptrend, a strong uptrend. So today's going to be an interesting day. Is it ending bullish with the close near the high? We might see the follow through finally to the upside and see that momentum follow through. If we don't, we make some doji or bearishness, then I doubt that we will see the follow through of this momentum. We might see further retracement or reversal. Now, for a reversal, this bottom is very important. A break below that bottom could mean the potential for reversal retracement. Obviously, be careful of 170.40, which is still the broken top of the monthly chart. That could still act as support. All right, but something to be aware of. Otherwise, we might see further retracement or reversal down to the bottom of this uptrend channel, for instance, and retest this 169, 169.50 bottom. If we do break to the upside, then keep an eye on this top, obviously, and today's candle. On a 4-hour chart, that looks like this. We do have divergence between these tops on the 4-hour chart. If you compare price to the oscillator, we clearly have a higher high on price, but a lower high on the oscillator. So that could be a potential for this pair to have some struggles. However, on the hourly chart, as we will find out soon enough, there is no divergence present between the tops, so that is in favor of some follow through to the upside. So we'll have to see how that which has the most impact. Today is going to be an important day, in my opinion. However, in general, if you look at those orange lines at the top, it still looks like a consolidation. It still looks like an upside, correction, upside, correction, upside, correction, upside. That's still possible. So today, that orange line, keeping an eye on that top resistance line to see if we can break above it. If it doesn't happen today, then I'm afraid that this entire consolidation is just taking too long. That's basically the conclusion then. So that will remain to be seen. If it's taking too long, I would still want to wait a couple of candles on the 4-hour chart, 6 of them, right, till the next day. But if it takes too long, basically, then the weight of that consolidation is getting too much. It's getting extending too far to the side, and then usually you get a bigger consolidation or maybe even a bigger retracement, right? Consolidations like this, you see, like these and these, you got follow through. right? Upside, 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 right? But this one could be taking too long. However, it's still a contracting triangle. So if something happens today, I would definitely see that as a decent break to the upside of that uptrend and uptrend channel. This is the hourly. You can see price bounce off the 50 fib here. So if it breaks below that 50 fib, then I would be cautious, and we are seeing the end of that uptrend. As long as we stay above it, there is that potential for follow through because we have this impulse, and this is just sideways zone. So key lines, the orange resistance line and the magenta support line. One of these two is probably going to break. I want the orange line to break today, and then the targets could be 172.20, the minus 272 target, and 172.80, the minus 618 target. All right, so those will be what I'm aiming for upside. Otherwise, let me just take a look at the weekly candle. You can see small inside candle, but still ended bearish. So that time will tell how that candle will be used. Obviously, last week's high and last week's low are pivotal for getting an idea what might be happening in the near future. Right? A break of yesterday's or last week's low, maybe bearishness. Last week's high could be potential some bullishness. AUD USD is just like the euro dollar in a position where we could see a break to both sides. Only the pound dollar so far, I have more of a preference, obviously, to the upside. But the AUD USD is just quite in a mixed grayish zone. We have momentum here, followed by consolidation, but we also have momentum here. So I'm open to both sides. The break below magenta for a follow through to the downside, a break below 92, or a break above 94.60, last week's high, for some momentum up to maybe the 886 fib at 96.30. Those are the biggest potentials here. All right. And above 96.30, maybe up to the top at 97.50. So those are the bullish bear lines on this weekly chart. The daily chart, we see a strong momentum here, followed by consolidation. So that would, on the daily chart, favor more bullishness, in fact. And you can see that on this 4-hour chart, we actually had a good uptrend channel here. But recently, we're making kind of a triangle between these orange lines. So a break of that triangle to the downside, we could maybe see a fall back to 93.20, and then maybe all the way to the bottom of that range that we've seen on this daily chart. This range, I mean, right there we have the red circle. You can see the move back to the bottom if we break that orange line, or if we break the 94.60 and the top of this triangle, we could see follow through to the upside. The hourly chart showing that triangle a bit better. This is the main formation at the moment for this week's trading, and we'll keep an eye on how that looks like and how that breaks. Last week, you can see 5 weeks of price action going sideways. Yeah, last week was no different, basically, with a small bullish candle, but pretty big wick on top as well. And otherwise, I don't have anything to add besides this. If we zoom into the hourly, maybe, let's take a look. No, it's just a typical triangle formation. Maybe we can see a trend line like this still in play, but that wouldn't help too much in my opinion. But there could be an early breakout above that lighter orange line. Yeah, that's about it. And this bottom line could be a good indication also for downside. Let's take a look now at dollar yen. Dollar yen, we had a fib from this bottom to this top, right here. From here to there where I have the green circles. And well, price has been bouncing off those fibs, the 50, the 38.2 fib, the 61.8, the 78.6, and most recently the 888.6 fib. Is that the bouncing spot for some upside? Well, time will tell. I'm not a big fan of this dollar yen because if you look at the daily chart, you can see big consolidation on this daily. Look at this. Massive consolidation, relatively speaking, close to the bottom of that consolidation, which means we could see finally that bounce indeed off of that 886 fib that we saw on the 4-hour chart. And in that case, price could head back to the orange line, to the green line, the red line, or this red line, or this magenta line. Those would be potential targets to the upside. There's not a ton of space, as you can see, before we bump into resistance, so that makes that trading a bit more complicated. Back to the 4-hour, maybe the hourly. And yeah, there's really nothing to add. Most recently, of course, we had some upside followed by consolidation and upside. So we might bump into resistance because we did have a pretty big fall on this 1-hour chart. And we could be at resistance right now. In fact, if it does pull back here, then the breakout potential could be there between the lighter orange and the darker orange. Right? Not a great trade in my opinion, but could be there. Or if price were to break below maybe support like that, we could see follow through to the downside. So, but it's not really my favorite pair at the moment. Certainly not. I'm not going to trade it probably this week. XAU USD. We saw a break to the upside, but a big fall today on gold. Interesting. We had some divergence between these 4-hour tops here. Look at that. Right there. You see divergence between this top and this one, double divergence, price falling hard after that double divergence. Yeah, last week we had the break to the upside, but this week falling fast. So let's take a look at that weekly candle. We retraced almost the entire bullish candle of last week, and we're getting close to last week's low. So that could still be a bouncing spot for upside. Remember, support and resistance here. That could be support. But if we do break below it, then we could see maybe further extensions to the downside. Maybe down to the 50 fib, for instance, at 12.95 or even lower. If we do bounce at this weekly bottom and the bottom of this the orange line, trend line here, we could see maybe that follow through to 1350 and maybe 1380 eventually. That could still be a bouncing spot there. But if I look at the speed and where price is falling, it does look very, very fast. So be very cautious of that. I would rather wait for some price action signal to confirm price is bouncing, because with that speed, it could really push through as well and just break through that support like it's nothing. So especially with the speed I see here, this one, very, very fast. So I wouldn't want to go short right in front of support like that. Wouldn't want to go long either with that speed to the downside. So either waiting for a clear signal that we're going to bounce, or waiting for some clear signal here that we're going to move back to the downside, like a candlestick pattern, for instance. All right. The other support line, of course, to keep an eye on is this one. If we break that, as I said, some further downside is possible. Overall, quite choppy as well. If you look at this, up, down, up, down, up. Overall, quite choppy. A trend line to keep an eye on the long term is this magenta line here. If it does break above that, we can maybe finally see some further extensions up to even higher, like 1430, for instance, all right, which was a top in the past and could still act as a resistance in the future. All right, folks. Well, this week is July trading, so we've seen that the price has gone a bit slower in its movements. The dollar CAD may be an example. An exception. Excuse me. We could see the dollar CAD actually moving to the upside here, so maybe some CAD weakness is occurring at this trend line here that connects the weekly bottoms. So we're getting a bounce at that line. So it'll be interesting to see how far that could go to the upside. For instance, on this dollar CAD. Oh, like this. can see the break to the upside. So will be interesting. Next resistance levels on this dollar CAD could be these bottoms here, for instance. So price could go up to that. This was a one rocket. So this was one of the bigger movers. Otherwise, market was quite quiet recently. Pound yen maybe two to the downside. Recently, a big fall, big fall, and making kind of this channel. But we've broken out of that downtrend channel, in fact, already. So we'll have to see. This is looking like it's regaining its momentum to the upside again after breaking this trend line on this pound yen. So maybe keep an eye on this target right here at 174.10, which is right at the resistance as well. That could be a potential for price to find some resistance. Overall, though, it is in an uptrend on this daily chart and on this weekly as well. But last week was a pretty bearish candle. Definitely uptrend, but last week was a pretty hefty bearish candle, which could act as maybe a potential retracement or reversal level. So pound yen, pretty difficult situation because we have that uptrend like that, but we're also quite close to these resistances. So we'll have to see which one is the winner. If price does respect that level that I mentioned on the hourly, I took it away. This magenta line 174.10. We can maybe see some downside from there and bigger retracement. If it does break above it, we could be back into, especially above this top right here, we could be back into breakout territory to the upside. All right, folks. Well, be careful in the next few weeks when we have maybe some lower movement than usual due to the summer. Price does and can sometimes be slower in its movement, so be careful of that. Once again, blog.binary.com/weekly trade room is where you can get the recording if you would like. And we'll be back next week, the 21st of July on Monday at 8 a.m. UK time as always. And wish you good trading until then, and hope to see you next week. Cheers.